everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cycling Culture Club Connections. Today, we sit down with the one and only Llori Sharpe. Llori is the former national champion for Jamaica and the Caribbean. And beyond that, she's just an incredible individual who has, over the course of her life, overcome a huge number of barriers to get to where she is now. Not only is that a very successful and decorated cyclist, professional female cyclist, but she's also a huge advocate for diversity and community, and has done a huge amount of work personally to drive that in her home country of Jamaica. Most recently, raising a huge amount of money for the relief effort after Hurricane Melissa. Llori and I have been in talks for a little while to get this on the cards. I'm super glad we managed to do it because it's right on the cusp of some really exciting things for her coming up very, very soon, which I'll let her tell you about. No sense in spoiling it just yet. As always, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your time here. Your time is valuable. So if you spend it with me here today, then all I can say is a big, big thank you. If you want to support what we do at Cycling Culture Club, then please head over to the website, subscribe to our newsletter. We send out monthly newsletters that round up the stories from our contributors and general stories from diversity in cycling. Or you could buy a piece of merch like this hoodie or caps or t-shirts, which all the profits of which go to supporting our initiatives like our scholarship program, like our content creation, like our support of riders all over the world. Again, really appreciate your time and your energy. Thanks for listening. We'll dive in. Cheers. Hey Llori, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Hey man, likewise. Thanks for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's my pleasure. We were just saying offline that, we've been talking about doing this for a little while. So yeah, super glad to finally get you on. A lot of people will know who you are, I think. I'd hope so. And certainly the contributors from CCC will know you by now. But I guess for the audience listening who might not know who Llori Sharpe is, do you want to give us just a quick intro? Who are
Yeah,
you?
sure. My name is Llori Sharpe. I'm a national cyclist from Jamaica, from Kingston, Jamaica. I've been riding for about, I think I'm going on like 10 years now. But as a professional or like as a competitive cyclist, maybe about 5 years, 4 to 5 years now. Besides cycling, I'm a co-owner and like the sales person for my family business, Chocolate here in Jamaica. And yeah, those are kind of like my two loves, like cycling and chocolate. So that's what really takes up all my time.
There's a lot of people listening right now who are resonating hard with that. Can you pick between them, cycling or chocolate?
Yeah, I can't. They're kind of equal, like for me in terms of how important they are. So I can't.
Good answer. I was expecting you to like ditch cycling in favor of chocolate any day. But so that's a really interesting one. So you work for your family business. How long have your family been making chocolate?
Commercially, like since the pandemic, like literally just before the pandemic hit, we like registered the business and everything, maybe like the February of 2020, and then everything hit like the next month. My dad, he's the one who actually started learning how to make chocolates, and he's been doing that for the past, I want to say, 11, 12 years. He started way back when I was like in high school, like grade. And yeah, that's where everything really started for Chocolore. And I would like he would make stuff at home, and then I would bring it to school, sell it to my classmates. I was even at my high school's entrepreneurship day, I think last week, and that was the story I told the girls. Like Chocolore started at the very place that they are currently. And it's been exciting to see how much it's grown over the past 10 years. So we're all around in Jamaica. We're trying to get export properly to North America, the UK, anywhere where we can really. And yeah, it's just been nice to have something stable alongside cycling. So that's why, as I said, I enjoy both. I like the stability of having something else to do other than just cycling.
Yeah, I think that's important for people, isn't it? Because well, I certainly can get wrapped up in, what cycling is, and before you really know it, you look at yourself and you're like, oh, okay, there's nothing really about me besides cycling.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
which to no other cyclist is fine, right? But then I chat to my wife and she's like, come on, can we talk about something other than cycling? So
Yeah.
yeah,
I always think it's very important for someone, and I think you would agree as well, for people to be multifaceted or multidimensional. You can't just have one aspect of your life that fully consumes you. You need to have other things to channel or pour your energy into. And I think that's what's been so great about having the business here.
Yeah, it really sounds it. Before we get into like cycling proper and we're a cycling focused podcast looking at cycling community, but I'm super interested in that idea of multi-dimensionality and what that experience of not only being part of a family business, but also a successful family business in your hometown and your home country. How's that influenced you as a person and as a rider?
See, I've kind of been this person since prep school, like having always to balance because I've been an athlete pretty much all my life. Like I started learning how to swim when I was like 8 months old, swam all throughout prep school, swam all through high school as well, and then incorporated like long distance running and cycling in the latter years of high school. Like schoolwork and sports was always something I had to juggle. And I think instead of schoolwork now it's the business. So I'm still having to like juggle. So yeah, I think it's pretty important just as I said, to just have that multi-dimension, like to be a person who has several things around you. Not necessarily to distract you, but to things to keep your different foci on. So I think if you're just stuck in just one area, then you just lose sight of everything else.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. What do your parents think about it? Obviously, I can only imagine they've been supportive of your cycling career over the
Yeah.
years. Um, is there any part of them that would like you to hang up your wheels and take over the business?
Yes and no. I think because my parents are quite up in age. Like they're both in the retirement age. Granted, my mom's still working, but my dad's pretty retired. So this is kind of like something to occupy themselves as well because they too don't want to just waste away doing nothing in their retirement years. They want to pour whatever energy they have into something else. So that's been something that I quite appreciate. But they do, well, most of my mom, she was quite like wondering if cycling is something I should really continue after my accident back in August. So I think as a parent, you would understand that, especially since I'm her only child, like your child's life has been endangered by something that she wasn't even too fond of from the start. Um, I don't think she's gotten over it yet, but I mean, she knows this is something I truly love, and as long as I'm safe and happy, then she's happy.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, right? I should clarify, I think I maybe misunderstood your question. I'm not personally a parent. I have parents, and my mum is also from Jamaican heritage and is always worried
Yeah,
about me out on my bike. And so when I call her up and I tell her, actually, yeah, I did fall off or I did damage this thing or I am, in hospital, she's always, up in arms about it.
yeah,
And,
exactly.
I told you so, you shouldn't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I think a lot of our like Caribbean listeners will relate
Mhm.
to that sort of parental struggle of balancing, their worry with your aspiration.
Exactly.
Um, it's super interesting. So I guess thinking about where you are now, you're juggling this life. You spent your entire professional career juggling, as a lot of professionals do, work or study or travel or whatever it might be.
I
Um,
even have to like juggle the studying part as well. Like when I just started with Canyon Strong Generation a couple years ago, I was still in university at that time. But fortunately, the dean of the faculty, he allowed me to do classes online. I was training the what, because you can understand that there's a time difference. Because I was in Girona, Spain, and my school was in Barbados. So I would train in the morning, do whatever, and then 8, 7, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I'm tuning into classes. So that was quite interesting to do those first couple of years.
That's intense, intense for anybody, let alone someone trying to push themselves as you would as an athlete. So I think that's a really good place to start, Laurie. Like, talk to me about your journey into cycling, and we'll get to Canyon SRAM, I'm sure, at some point. But where did it all begin for you? When did you first jump on a bike? Who was your inspiration?
Um, well, the first time I jumped on a bike, I really can't recall. Like it was just years ago, and like my parents, I think they bought me like a bike from like Courts or something from Christmas or something like that. So that's the first time I hopped on a bike. But as in terms of training or something similar, that was not until 2015, 16. Yeah, thereabout. Because I was, as I said, I was swimming all my life. Like I started swimming, as I said, around 8 months old, and I was swimming competitively from about 7 years old to around 16, 17. And I did a, I did a random 5K one time, and the time 5K run that is, and the time was seemingly good for someone who just was a swimmer. So my coach at the time, he was actually the one who suggested I pursue triathlon, or at least try it out and see if I liked it. So that's pretty much how cycling came into the picture because, of course, you need the bike for triathlon. And I think, yeah, that's where my cycling journey really started. I was still doing triathlon from about 16 to 19 years old. And then I sustained a knee injury from running, and that kind of put me on the shelf. I really didn't want to run that much anymore, and I had kind of lost my love for swimming. And then cycling was just there. So I continued to pursue that and just dropped to the other two.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who'd be familiar with that similar journey to you. Was that the last triathlon you ever did? You know, that training that you did there, or have you picked it up again since?
Yeah, I haven't done triathlon since. I remember when I was studying in Barbados, there was a cyclist, shout out to Danielle, who I hope to see probably next month. She did a bit of triathlon, so I would train with her every now and then and do a couple swims and like brick sessions. But like in terms of competitive triathlon, I haven't done that since 2019.
Do you miss it at all, or are you happy to have left that behind?
No. I mean, I still watch it casually. Like I would follow like highlights of races on Instagram or something of the sort. But to do it again, maybe just for fun, but not competitively.
So what was next? So you dropped swimming, you dropped running, injury, that classic runner's injury that leads to cycling. What was your first step on the cycling run? Did you immediately get into racing? Were you more casual? What was it like?
A bit more casual, honestly. And I would represent the country. Jamaica. I'll still represent Jamaica every now and then. I even went to the Junior Caribbean Championships and got a bronze medal in the time trial there. But I still wasn't really serious about cycling. I mean, the opportunity to represent the country was there, so I just went with it. It wasn't until the opportunity with Canyon Swam in 2020, well, it started in 2021, but the team wasn't formed until 2022. So it wasn't until that opportunity came about that I said, okay, maybe cycling is something I can actually pursue competitively. So yeah, that's where the jump from just recreational to being a competitor kind of was sparked.
So yeah, I guess coming back to Canyon SRAM, it's a team that I would imagine a lot of people listening will be familiar with in one guise or another. But when you joined, did you say 2021?
So like the application to join was 2021, like summary, and then the team actually kicked off in 2022.
Okay. So for those of you that don't know, I'm going to crudely explain, and I guess Laurie can do it better than me, but Canyon SRAM is the professional women's team, and Canyon SRAM Generation was their development team. Is that fair?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I think I'm right in saying that that's a pretty unique setup from a
On the women's
professional
side.
team. Yeah, exactly. And I've always followed them with interest because seeing what they've done with Canyon SRAM Generation, I guess I've been impressed by the commitment that that team structure and I guess its sponsors has put into cycling and
Yeah.
particularly into cycling for underrepresented groups.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, this is an outside perspective. I'm interested in the insider perspective. You know, what was that journey into Canyon Tram from for you, from application all the way through to, you know, your first time meeting with the team and maybe like going on your first training ride?
So the first application process was kind of casual and less formal. Pretty much what they did was post on their Instagram page that they're starting this new team um, on the hunt for applicants from all over the world. As you rightfully said, their focus was to gather recruits from underrepresented countries, so particularly like African countries, Asian countries, us here in the Caribbean, and South America as well, so the Pan American region. Yeah, so it was pretty much like a questionnaire. You fill it out. Um, I don't remember the questions exactly, but yeah, you just submitted that questionnaire, and you would hear back if they were thought you were attractive or your responses were attractive. So that was about July, August, and then I heard back that I was shortlisted around September, and then They said they would get back to me a couple weeks, blah blah blah. And then the next month, I did hear back again, and it was actually to say that I was selected from, I think it was about, it's between 200 and 250 applicants from around the world. So the the guy who ended up being the DS for the team, he pretty much confirmed in that email in October that I was selected for the team of, I think it was 9 of us. So yeah, I mean, of course I'm excited. Um, but then the realities of like visa issues came into the picture because I didn't know like the Schengen area was this intense, especially for persons or passports like Jamaican passports, where or countries are kind of restricted in terms of or freedom to travel to here, there, and everywhere. So that was quite an interesting experience to like go to the embassy, get rejected, go again, get rejected again, and then finally get through. I didn't let that bother like my perception of the opportunity. I was honestly just really excited to see what I could accomplish racing in Europe because at the time I think the only person I could pretty much relate to was Tennille Campbell from Trinidad and Tobago. So it was quite nice to see her and see what she has been able to accomplish and not necessarily try to replicate that, but to see if I could put the Caribbean on the map in terms of cycling professionally. So I was glad to have the opportunity to do that. Funny enough, Tennille was actually not really my neighbor, but she lived a couple hundred meters from me when we were where we were based in Verona. So it was glad I was glad to have like her around to walk to supermarket, train of course, and just chat and hang out. So yeah, it was pretty cool just to be a part of that whole setup. I was even famous club. I was even like the first medalist for them when they just started. Uh, they did a race in Spain and I came second or third or something like that. And then the seasons, I was with them for about 2 seasons. I think I was better out of my shell in the second season because I think I was a bit more comfortable and I made more of an effort to like make friends other than my teammates. So that quite allowed me to just be myself in the space and not be as timid or as closed off as I probably was in the first season. So like again, super grateful for Canyon Stram and what they were able to do with the those of us from that first set, and it's been nice to see what they continue to do in their efforts to like find these potential world champions or just successful riders.
Yeah, totally. I'm interested in a couple of points that you mentioned there. So, I guess the first is this idea about complexity with visas, and I think this is one of those things that most people don't even think about, particularly if you're based in Europe, because you take it for granted, right? You think it just happens. But a conversation I've had a few times with a good friend of mine, Michael from Team Armani. I don't know if you've ever crossed paths, but Michael often says when he's talking to people about Armani is, you know, getting riders the equipment is just the start of the battle because actually visas and the logistics around moving riders around is every bit as challenging.
I even recall from the first set of riders, one rider in particular, she couldn't come at all to join the team. Like whichever embassy she went to in her home country, they rejected her each time she went. So she couldn't take up the opportunity at all. And then another rider, she only got to race with us maybe the last two or so races, and then she didn't get renewed, so that was pretty much the end for her. Yeah, so it's quite an uphill battle. It's really unfortunate though, but hoping as time progresses, it can just be a bit easier for us in these countries that don't have that freedom of travel.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think teams could do more to help that process?
That the DS for our team, he went above and beyond to help myself and another teammate of mine who did get the visas. And he he honestly worked tirelessly to make sure that we had our paperwork and we were all settled. A lot of the times, sometimes teams just don't want to put in effort or don't think it's worthwhile, so they just stick with the Europeans and then that's it.
Yeah, it's a real struggle because I guess a lot of teams are pretty strapped for resource, whether that's human or financial. That doesn't make it okay. There's no excuse, but I can completely see how that happens in particularly smaller team structures.
And then there's
I've
just
had,
so much more untapped potential that, I mean, these people they don't really get the opportunity to like hone their craft and get all these higher level races and pretty much develop into what they could potentially be.
yeah.
So yeah.
It's exciting though, right? Like if you imagine the amount of untapped potential in countries like Africa and the Caribbean, continents like Africa and the Caribbean, it makes me wonder, could one of our future champions, male or female, come from an underrepresented nation? And that makes me very personally interested. And organizations like Team Africa Rising do a great job at showcasing African talent and
So
that
I
sort
was
of thing.
really excited to see that the Team Armani started a women's continental team. So I hope they do really well in their stint there. Yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm hopeful to get Zavarine on the podcast at some point. Because yeah, she's really brilliant. I guess just taking a step back, Llori. You mentioned about Tennille, and Tennille and I know each other, and I've been trying to talk her into coming on the podcast as well. Was it useful and helpful for you to have, another woman of color, someone that you could relate to, even like shared Caribbean heritage? Was it helpful to have someone like that just 200 meters away from where you were living?
Definitely. I mean, as you can imagine, you're just surrounded by people who don't look like you. So it was nice to have that comfort in having that friendship with her. And we're still friends to this day. Even back in 2024, like December, she and I and her brother, we went to Colombia just to ride. And that was pretty fun having them there. It's still, as I said, we're still friends to this day. So I think being able to go to your kind of set the foundation and then we just built on having each other in our lives, each other in our respective lives.
Yeah, it's a special relationship, and I'm sure you lent on each other a lot during that period. And um, yeah, I think people take for granted that you show up in a new place and you can find people easily. Like particularly in a different cultural scenario, it's not so easy for a lot of people. And yeah, I think that's
Also,
an important thing.
also had Aisha McGowan and Will, or her husband. They were also still in Jerome actually. So it was nice to have them as well, just to have that people who I could relate to better, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. Every time I spend time in Girona, I try and check in with Aisha and crew because it feels like that contingent is growing slowly, but still needs a bit more help. So, yeah, I'm working on it. So, yeah, I guess back to your journey, Llori. At this point, you've raced a couple of seasons for Canyon SRAM, and what was next for you? I suppose you moved on somewhere else.
Yeah, after Canyon SRAM to 2022, 2023, I then went on to race with Legion of Los Angeles in the US for 2024 and 2025. Of course, you can imagine that's a different type of racing. It was more criterium racing than anything else. So that was quite, not necessarily a shock, but quite a different change, or yeah, quite a change for me in terms of the racing style and my approach to racing, even like mental prep for racing and everything, because crit racing is a bit more fast paced from the start versus racing in Europe, where sometimes, of course, it can be full gas from the start, but most times you kind of gradually like ease yourself into the race. Um, but all in all, granted, there are two different styles of racing, but I did enjoy both. And of course, while being in the US was, of course, easier for me because I could, after a race, I could go back home, help out with the chocolate business. Versus when I was in Europe, I was just pretty much there for the entire year and couldn't really get to come back home because it was so expensive. Um, so I did like having that flexibility racing in the US, and I think not think, but I know I'll have that similar flexibility with what I have planned for this year.
Okay, well, we'll come to that shortly. We won't give away the beans, but I guess Legion's another team that a lot of our listeners will know. But it must have been quite a different experience for you moving into Legion, which, my perspective at least, is a much more a team full of riders from a much more broad range. So obviously Justin and Corey Williams, but other men and women of color as part of that team. Is that fair?
And yes, I mean it does have like a decent blend of different riders. I know Alexi from Trinidad and Tobago, she's on the team. So it's kind of nice to have that Caribbean camaraderie as well. And Justin and Corey, they have their Belizean heritage, which pretty much mostly, besides a few persons from like Central America and like the Spanish Caribbean, it's pretty much just all other Americans.
That's good. That's interesting because I guess my perspective comes from the loudest voices within the team, and obviously Justin's one of those, which I'm sure he would admit to if I had him sat here. But what was your 2 years like on Legion? Did you enjoy crit racing lifestyle? It's very, very different as you mentioned, but did that suit you? Did you enjoy that time?
Say crit racing suits my skill set particularly, but I mean it was still a good opportunity to learn and see what I could contribute to the team. Um, so I think those first few races it was pretty much learning for me and learning where to go at what time and how to support my teammates in whatever way I could and just thinking on the fly. So I think when you're racing in Europe, you can kind of get uh, not necessarily lost in thought, but you're just going through the motions for some portion of the time. But with crit racing, you're pretty much always like switched on. So that was kind of like something I had to learn. Um, I wouldn't mind going back into it. I mean, maybe as like a strider every now and then. But it was really fun. And I did enjoy like I think I quite liked the maybe not necessarily night racing, but I did like racing in the afternoon and just seeing how like the crowds and everything and just people cheering you on and people actually getting to see the race in full because it's around a circuit. So yeah, that was quite fun and just quite the experience, which I really enjoyed.
Do you have a favorite race? Something that sticks in your mind?
Yes. Athens Twilight. Specifically because the the people from MAC are always there, the Metro Atlantic Cycling Club. They're always there and they're just very loud and cheering me on. Like I can always hear them every lap just cheering me on, or whether it's my name or saying "Go Jamaica" or something similar. So that's always a race that I look forward to.
That sort of memory sticks with you forever as well.
Yeah.
That booming noise of your of ultimately, and yeah.
I also like Redlands. It's not well. There is a crit in the five stages, five, 4 or 5. I like that race, not necessarily the races themselves, which are nice, but because of the host family situation that they have. And I now consider the host family that we went with for the 2 years as like my second parents. So shout out to Kim and Terry. I love them. They're just like my second parents. So I even talk to them quite regularly. And they even sent me a Lego set maybe 2 weeks ago. So yeah, they're pretty special for me and I always look forward to seeing them.
That's super nice. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know like, people would host. Is it a rider specific thing or is it just a general hosting thing? Or
It really depends. I mean, some races do set up like host family situation. Of course, you can get your own Airbnb or whatever, but some races they do have something where persons in the community would put up their homes for riders to like stay, whether they are there or not. Um, so yeah, that is an option for some races.
that's super cool. I'm really astounded to hear that, and I guess with everything going on in the US at the moment, that feels quite wholesome and
Yeah.
yeah, appreciated. Do you mind if I ask like about your host family? Like, were they interested in cycling? Were they white Americans? That sort of thing. It's
Um,
interesting.
so it's a couple, Kim and Carrie. Carrie, she's a white American, and Kimmy, she is like Polynesian, like has some and a bit of like Native American ancestry. And they have a son. His name is Andrew, and a dog. Her name's Sid, who's pretty much their second child. Uh, in terms of like their interest in cycling, I think it started when they first hosted Legion before I was on it. Um, I don't know how long before that was, honestly. I don't remember. Uh, but yeah, they were just super excited to like hear that they were hosting the top team in the US, pretty much. So they were excited. They had all their family members because Kimmy, her family is pretty much within a small radius of where her house is. So her dad literally lives across the street. Her brother maybe 2, 3 miles at most. Her sister maybe a mile and a half from her house. So the family's pretty still close, like physically. So yeah, once I heard that they were hosting the top team, they were super excited, made signs and everything. Super happy to have us there or have the team there the year I wasn't there. So that's pretty much where their like love for cycling started, and then it grew as they continued to host each other.
It's actually a really lovely story because it sounds like they weren't really like connected to the community before that, but they certainly are now.
Casual viewers, but not like super invested.
Yeah. And I guess from your perspective, host family who could be just that, a family, is that closer to what your community is like back in Kingston? My experience of certainly of parts of the Caribbean is there's a really close knit community of people, and actually people are, particularly in Europe, people are not too cozy with their neighbors generally, you know, with the few exceptions. Is that sort of your experience? Was it nice coming from Jamaica to America where you could sort of continue that feeling?
Yes, of course. I mean, I won't deny that there is a part of me that does like being alone. I don't think anyone else could relate to that. But it was nice, like having, especially being. I think it more so has to do with me being in a foreign place, and not knowing, not necessarily how to get around, but just having like a sense of stability. Like, for example, I would ride in the morning, come back to the house, and like whoever is there is able to welcome me back home or even make lunch or we make plans for the afternoon or something like that. So it's especially when I'm in the US or not here in Jamaica, I don't have anything else to do but ride my bike, honestly. And it was nice having people around me who could uh, support or be a part of that extra time that I had and to make it
Yeah.
meaningful.
And also, I guess, flesh out the experience for you beyond just cycling, as we were saying at the beginning, like into a multi-dimensional like experience, because you've actually built some friendships and some extra
Yeah.
familiar, family relationships, which is cool.
Yeah, funny enough, like apart from Redlands, I've stayed with them randomly sometimes throughout the year. Like I would message them saying, "Can I stay from X date to X date?" And they say, "Of course." And then I would just fly to them and just stay with them, and then go wherever else. So yeah, as I
That's
said,
super
we've
good.
built like quite a good relation. I've built quite a good relation. It's been happy to have. I'm happy to have them in my.
That's super cool. And where are we on the timeline between, starting to ride with Legion and you becoming Jamaican national champ for the first time?
I was actually national champ in my second year of Kenyan Slam. So that was 2023. Yes. So I was national champ then and for 2024.
Okay, so as you transition from Canyon Tram into Legion, that you were still national champ at that time.
Yes, yes, I was.
Gotcha. Because I was going to say I've got a picture of you that I saw before this podcast of you in Legion kit in Jamaican national colours, which is obviously super cool, and I hope you still have it somewhere. But yeah, interested in the timeline. So you became national champ when you were still at Canyon Shram. Tell me a bit about that journey. Obviously that's a huge achievement, and I'm guessing Canyon Tram's infrastructure was quite intrinsic in helping you to do that, or did it happen organically?
I would say organically. I was racing in Europe from maybe April to national champs are in June. So from April to June, I was racing in Europe, and then I left and came to race here. Unfortunately, like racing on the women's side here isn't as competitive as I would like it to be, or as it should be, really. So hopefully, in the coming years, that we can make some progress here locally to get more girls riding, more women riding, so we can like beef up the potential representation here from in Jamaica. But yeah, I came here, won the race, and then just went back to Europe whenever I could.
So it sounds like you wanted to fight for it and fight for that national position.
Yeah, I mean, like who wouldn't? I mean, of course, sometimes you do like when things come a bit easier, but sometimes you also want to like fight for something that you put kind of put on a pedestal.
Yeah, no, it's super cool and an amazing achievement. Whichever way you look at it. But what was it
Okay,
like?
go ahead.
What was it like riding with the national colours on your back?
It was pretty. I mean, say it was great, especially just having kind of standing out in a way. And it was really nice, like some races when they would call like the national champs to the front of the line when they were starting races. So it was cool to have like that sort of recognition for an account or for pretty much representing an entire country. It was at times it would be a bit daunting because sometimes you would perform so well and then you'd say, I let down my country or I let down people who in the cycling space who support me. But in other times it was quite a bit motivating, like I'm representing our country, and I need to put my best foot forward. So that's what I kind of like was going back and forth with.
Yeah, I get that. It's tough, isn't it? Because that it comes with a responsibility, and that responsibility means you put this huge amount of pressure on yourself to perform, even when you like everyone else, you've got stuff going on, and it's not always it's not always your day. But I think just being able to look back and look what you've achieved is super impressive. And to be able to call yourself a national champion is quite amazing. Are you still able to ride with the colours on your arms?
I mean, I still love the jerseys, so of course I will. And I think that pressure was even that pressure compounded when I became Caribbean champion in 2024. That happened when I was with Legion. So not only was I the national champion of Jamaica, but I was also had the Caribbean title. So I mean, two of them was quite interesting to handle mentally, but yeah, it is what it is. And as I said, I just always try to my best foot forward.
Totally. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you. So I guess congratulations for that one as well. So I guess for the listeners and for me, what does the Caribbean Championships take into account all of the Caribbean islands, or is it specific ones? Putting you on the spot here, sorry.
Pretty much all the Caribbean nations, like Spanish, English, French, Dutch, yeah, all of us. Yeah, all of I think this year it's gonna be in Dominican Republic, but don't quote me on that. Last year it was in but yeah. Last year I came yeah, it was Belize. Last year I came fifth, second in the time trial. The year prior I won, came fourth in the time trial, and the year before that I came second and someplace in the time trial, I don't remember. But yeah, I've been quite consistent. Hope to do better this year.
Okay. So you are ready and raring to go for this year.
Yeah, I think I am. I think last year, especially, it happened after my accident in August. So I was kind of like recouping, like preparing myself as much as I could. Pretty much with one foot. Interesting experience, I must say. But yeah, I did the best I could at that time.
I mean, you say you came fifth.
Yes.
I mean, that's insane. You came back after a crash and came fifth. That's amazing.
Yeah, I tried my best.
You're humble, aren't you, Llori?
I think so. I
I
think
think
so.
so. You shouldn't be. Sometimes, sure, but not always. You achieve some amazing things. I guess that brings us perfectly into the present day. So I guess when we spoke a little bit offline, you've got some stuff in the works. You're obviously still racing and training and working hard and working on the business on the side. What's present day look like to you? What does your racing schedule look like? What are your plans for the rest of 2026?
So 2026, I will be a part. Do you know of Andrew Jackson?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be a part of his like project slash team, something different for 2026. So doing a bit of off road and then doing whatever road events that I find myself in. So for example, I'll be doing the Pan American Road Championships next, not next month, like it's actually this month. Where today is the ninth. We're recording this the ninth, and then the championships is pretty much next week. Yeah. So I'll be heading there to represent Jamaica, hoping to do well. And yeah, as I said, gravel events that we decide on, and then whatever road activities that, or like national duties that I have. So kind of flexible.
That's very, very cool. So I've met Andrew a couple of times and he seems like a super cool, very driven, very nice guy. I'd love to get him involved with CCC actually. So now you can be my mole to
Yeah,
help that happen.
I'll be the middle.
Yeah, please do. But I think what he's doing with something different is very interesting because it's my impression anyway is that it's blending a lot of different things from culture to racing to lifestyle, which I think is fascinating. So can you tell, I don't know if you're allowed to, but can you talk a bit more about what he's working on?
Yeah, I think as you kind of alluded to just now, like the idea is to not just highlight cycling. Of course, that's the bread and butter of what something different is, or like the that's the foundation. But he also wants to highlight the different countries we come from, because not only is it myself from Jamaica, but there's a guy from Congo, there's a guy from the US, Andrew himself, and it's like we want to highlight the environment from which we come from, essentially, while being on the bike. So to make it a bit more holistic than just say you go to X race, you finish whatever place, but also to highlight where we come from.
Totally. Am I right in saying that Andrew did his like intro film last year about LA? Was that him or was it Dante? I forget.
He's done a couple stuff in about LA, and I remember he and Dante and I think they did a race in Sierra Leone, and they
Mm,
pretty much did a short little film or something of the sort, just pretty much highlighting their experience there. So
awesome.
that's what I quite like about something different, to highlight not just cycling but the people and the people involved in something different and the environment.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to them telling your story. I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's on the
Yes,
cards.
that's the word.
Okay. Well, you and me going to catch up about that for sure.
Yeah.
Back to Pan American champs quickly. I don't know if you know Red Waters.
Yes, from Grenada.
Yeah. So obviously Red's a fellow contributor with yourself, and he's been on this podcast as well. And I know he's been really wanting to win that Pan American champs for a few years. Do you guys know each other personally? If not, you should definitely like grab a beer while you're over there.
We only follow each other on social media, but I don't think I we're not like
Sounds like we should change that.
yeah.
Cool. So I guess as we wind up a little bit and come to the close of this podcast, we talked a lot about cycling. We talked about your really impressive career. I know you do a lot of work for the community as well, and you and I personally have collaborated to raise money after the recent hurricane, and you raised an astonishing amount of funds for that relief effort, which is incredible. I know also you do other things within the Jamaican communities. So if you're happy to talk about it a little bit, it'd be great to, I guess, shout yourself out if you're able to, and tell the audience a bit about what you're up to.
Yeah, so what you were speaking to was the Ride for Relief last year after Hurricane Melissa, which pretty much devastated the majorly the western side of Jamaica. So we're talking St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, bits of St. James, bits of Trelawney, bits of Manchester as well. So my focus was on South Trelawney specifically because of my ties there. So my family, my parents are actually from South Trelawney. My mom's from Warsaw in Trelawney. My dad's from Troy, which is like 30 minutes. They're 30 minutes from each other. That's really where my focus is on. As you said, we raised about 1.2 million Jamaican. Don't know what the top off the top of my head what that is in British pound, but that's a good amount of money that was able to assist. So far, I assisted or we assisted. I'm still securing others to receive the remaining funds. So it wasn't just a one and done. I'm still helping people, and I would like to put on another fundraising effort, whether virtually or in real life. I do want to do one virtually, of course, because that really includes the diaspora, so persons like yourselves and others in the UK, persons in North America. So it was quite nice having you guys, and of course, I'm really appreciative of your help and like those in the diaspora for contributing and being a part of it. So yeah, hoping to do another one and to help more people because it was on record one of the, if not the most devastating hurricane in modern history, and it hit our country. So persons will still need help in months, years to come.
Yeah, I mean it was horrible to watch the footage from here, and um, Yeah, I think the devastation was really absolute in certain places. So, yeah, to have people like yourself who are able to give their time and energy and resources to raise that sort of money is incredible. And yeah, what you managed to raise itself was really impressive. And yeah, I hope you can do some more virtual rides with us over over the coming months. I suppose we're heading into spring summer in the northern hemisphere, so people will be packing away their turbo trainers. But I think we can get creative about how we can get people to
Yeah.
raise
It was
funds and
also
continue to support that.
it was also really the least I could do, because I don't know if I mentioned it in the second ride, but I think I did in the first ride. Back in 2004, my mom and I, we pretty much lost everything from Hurricane Ivan. So our house was, well, my dad was away working in Trinidad, so it was just us in the house. I was really just starting prep school. I was four turning, no, three turning four, heading to kindergarten. And we lived right beside the sea. Like when it wasn't the hurricane itself that demolished the house, it was like the storm surges. So like the sea like pretty much burst through the bottom of the house. It was a two-story house. So we were flooded out at the bottom, stuck on the top. And it wasn't until our neighbor came, because my mom, she like, we had a flashlight and she would flicker it to get the attention of our neighbors. So they came, they're actually Honduran apparently. That's what she told, fun fact. So they came with their ladder, leaned it up against what was remaining of the house, and we jumped through the window, and stayed with them for the night and headed to my uncle's house the next morning. I mean, as a child, you can probably imagine how traumatizing that was, even probably more so for my mother. I mean, you lost everything that you worked for, probably almost losing your life and your child's life. So having that experience, the least I can do is help someone who was badly affected by a hurricane. So yeah.
You're closing the loop on that story. But no, I think you're totally right in a lot of ways, and how traumatizing that would be for anybody, and but particularly your family. And to be able to channel that energy and that passion and actually turn that back into action is, I think, what makes you unique. Frankly, not many people can do that in the way you have. Equally, I'm sure that taps into your mentality as an athlete, because that is tenacity right there, and everything you've managed to raise as a result of that, and that feeds directly into your results, I'm sure, as an athlete. So yeah, I'm not just blowing smoke at you. You've always really impressed me, and yeah, that's a very recent example of just how you do that. Yeah, thank you for everything you did, and I'm sure that the Jamaican people that you've managed to help so far will be, yeah, counting their lucky stars that they had you to support them in this.
The farm I'm currently assisting, I just need to finalize what his needs are. I think he and another person with the last, and I try to raise funds again and help even more.
You just don't stop, do you?
No, I don't.
Always something else. Okay. Llori, thank you so much for your time. I always close this off with a bit of a canned question, I suppose, something that I like everyone to answer, because the answers always stick with me. And that question is, if you were to sit down in front of somebody tomorrow who is thinking about getting into cycling, or is maybe just started cycling, and they're maybe from an underrepresented group like me or you or others in our group, what would you say to them to encourage them to keep at it, or to jump into cycling?
Well, the first thing I would say is just do it. Sometimes there can be some hurdles to get into cycling, but I don't think you should let that deter you, because I know you would agree cycling is something super valuable, not just from the health perspective, but just to get to meet people. I mean, I'm here talking to you because of cycling, and you just you get to meet and interact with a whole bunch of people who can enrich your life. And cycling itself is just something I'm truly grateful for. And of course, there are other avenues you can get some sense of like satisfaction from. But I think cycling is truly in a league of its own. And once you get into it, you're pretty much hooked, and it gives so much to your life that I would encourage anybody else to get into it just because of how much it has done for
It's a very, very good answer, very eloquent and brilliant way to finish up today. Thank you so much again, Llori. If you want to let the listeners know where they can find you on socials and any other projects you want to shout out in the last few minutes, then by all means.
Pretty much Llori Sharpe on all platforms. That's Llori Sharpe Sharpe. Yeah, that's pretty much it on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere you can find me at Llori Sharpe.
Awesome. Thanks, Llori. I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing what you get up to with something different. And yeah, I'm sure it will be a great next chapter for you. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch on that. So thanks again.
Yeah, man, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.